So when you say cloud, when you say that my instance is actually running in the cloud, or when you say my data is actually sitting in the cloud, where exactly is this data or instance in the cloud? Will it be possible for somebody to point out where exactly these data or instance are actually residing, even though you say just say the cloud, right? Answer is yes, it is possible. So let's understand this, and let's clearly understand where and how does the cloud actually keep these resources that you actually uses or spin in your cloud instance or cloud account. In AWS, again, we are learning in the context of AWS here. So in AWS, there is a concept called AWS region and availability zone. These two concept or these two elements kind of help you to narrow down on which particular place you are having your resources stored. Before we jump into AWS region and availability zone, let's try to understand how this concept has come from the bottom up, right? So let's start with the building blocks and then figure out what a availability zone is and what an AWS region is and why that was a concept that AWS brought up called as regions and availability zone. So to start with, the basically when somebody says cloud, we tend to look up and then assume that this is something which is way up in the air somewhere, and which I don't really know, which I don't really need to care about. Yes, you don't need to really care about as an end user, but if you are looking at being a cloud practitioner, then probably you should understand this concept at least when somebody says something like a zone or a availability zone or a region, what exactly that means. So it's not up in the air, but we are here to really look at is the straight into the buildings. So let's say if you asked a guy in AWS who is actually having a permission to take you to the internals of the AWS cloud infrastructure. Let's say let's say you asked him that I have spin an instance in AWS, and can you please take me to that specific server where my instance is actually running. The question is it possible for him to take? Yes, it is possible to an extent. Let me put it that way. So if you asked an AWS guy to take you to that particular server where you are actually running your instance, what he's going to do is he will be going to go and look at your AWS console and then see where this is actually running, and we will come to that in a moment. And then where he is going to take you is into a physical building, something like this, right? So he will be going to take you to a physical building like this, which will be having multiple floors, and once you enter into this building, what you will be able to see is a bunch of servers, and all these servers will be enabled with virtualization, and more importantly, these servers will be interconnected with high speed connectivity. And in one of the physical building, you can have multiples of these racks of servers, and we call these racks of servers the data center. So in one building itself, one physical building itself, we can have multiple data centers. But for simplicity, as of now, for our understanding purpose, let's assume that every physical building is one data center. Now AWS will be having multiples of these data centers, two or more, or one or more of these data centers. Again, all of these data centers will be connected with a high speed internet connectivity, which when I say high speed, it is literally in milliseconds. And now two or more of this data center combinedly is what AWS called as an availability zone. So when you spawn your instance is going to sit in one of these availability zone, which means one of these data centers which is within an availability zone. Now, what is a region? Region is nothing but a combination or a group of multiple availability zone is called as a region. The concept of region and availability zone came for certain reasons. First, let's start with regions. The region came because we want to put our servers and our instances in a specific location, and there are multiple reasons for you to select a specific region, and we will come to that at the end of this session. But understand that you, as your business requirement, you will be selecting a specific region, and when you select a specific region, you will be putting your instances in that region, and within that region you will be putting it into the availability zones. And you will be encouraged to use multiple availability zones, because what availability zone, again, as of now at least, you now understand, when I say availability zone, that means there are multiple data centers. So for your redundancy purposes, we will be Amazon will be asking you to architect your application to use multiple availability zones as such. So to sum up, there are physical servers which are interconnected with high-speed connectivity, and those are in a physical building. And physical building can have multiple, and that physical building, let's call that physical building as the data centers. Between these data centers, again, there will be high-speed internet connectivity, and multiple of these data centers are called as the availability zone. So when you say availability zone, remember it's multiple data centers. And now multiple of those availability zone combined is called as an AWS region. As in today, Amazon AWS is actually having 31 launched regions, and there is a URL where you can actually visit. It is aws.amazon.com/about AWS global infrastructures, and you will be able to see the total number of region. As on today, it is 31, and there are 99 availability zones, and then growing. So now this actually begs answer to the question, why we need this thing called as AWS region. Availability zone, you need multiple availability zones because of the redundancy purpose, but why you need to really select an AWS region? There are major 4 driving factors for that. There can be even more than 4, but there are 4 major driving reasons. One is the compliance check. What that means is, let's say you are a customer, you are a company that is actually having your customers' data. Let's say, for example, the credit card data, right? So you are collecting your credit card information about your customer. So this credit card information and the customer name and detail needs to be stored in a particular location. There are compliance that actually states that when you use your customers' data, that needs to be residing in a specific location, and it cannot go beyond a geographical location. So you will be selecting something like North America and a region in North America, and making sure that none of the data actually moves away from the region North America, stuff like that. So that's an example of compliance check. So one thing is compliance check for your business. The second thing is service availability. It is not that all the services are available in AWS in all the regions. Basic services like compute, storage, network is available for all the regions. But if you are looking for some advanced services, you may need to make sure that the region that you select is actually having that service that you are actually looking for. And the third option, or the third driving factor, is the location. So when I say location here, it is basically your customer's location. You need to make sure that you are running your application and services very closer to your customer. So let's say you kind of anticipate that your customer is going to come or you are actually going to serve your customers, which is, let's say, in the Europe, right? So you should make sure that you are having your applications that is actually running in Europe, not in North America, or not in Asia. Because when your application is actually closer to your customer, the experience, the latency, and all those stuff is going to get improved. So make sure that when you select a region, it should be very closer to your set of customers. Last but not least is the cost factor. The cost of a service is not same across all the regions. By and large, it actually changes. So you need to make sure that when you run your application, your business, it should be cost effective, so that you should not not be incurring a lot of operational expenses. But again, that should be a balance. So it should be a balance across all four of these elements. Some of them are mandatory, some of them are kind of you can fine tune. Now, now as you know the concept of what an AWS region is, what an availability zone is, and now the next time when you log in into your AWS console, make sure that at the top right corner, the drop down which is highlighted here, that is nothing but regions. Again, when you say region, remember that it is nothing but a group of availability zone, and which is actually confined in a specific geographical location. You can see here, even in US, there is something called US East, West. In Asia, you are having again similar multiple locations, multiple AWS regions. And once you run an instance, you will be able to see in within that region. In this case, it is North Virginia as the AWS region. They have selected an availability zone, and the availability zone name is US East 1B. So US East 1B is nothing but a data center which we just saw, which is physically located in a building, which but again, most important thing is it is actually having the servers which is virtualization enabled and having a high speed connectivity. So that, I hope that actually helps you to kind of demystify what the cloud storage is, what an AWS region is, and what fundamentally an availability zone is. Thank you all. We'll meet in another session very soon. Thank you for listening.